Well, welcome to this video, and I hope you like it. If you do, click the like button, hit subscribe, and share with a friend. Okay, hopefully this lighting's a little better than previous videos. Wanted to talk a little bit about what I think the top 6 survival skills are. Some sad events in the local news recently have kind of pushed this to the forefront of my mind. There was somebody who fell into the river and drowned, and there was a 10-year-old kid who was playing down by the river and I guess lost one of his shoes, and it started to float away, and he chased after it and he also drowned. I should mention that at this point along the Ohio River, it is, held up by locks and dams. There's almost no current. I'm making the assumption that neither of these people were good swimmers, which brings up my first survival skill, learning to swim. Even in the desert, a flooding event is possible. I've heard stories, including one that my dad related to me from when he was in the Air Force stationed in West Texas, that he had seen a flash flood in the desert. He was out walking there. It wasn't raining anywhere near him, and all of a sudden this wall of water just came washing through a valley because there was a storm somewhere else farther up the valley, and the water came through. And I don't know how true it is or not, but I've often heard that more people drowned in the desert than die of thirst because of the likelihood of flash floods in desert environments whenever there's rain, farther up a canyon or something. Everybody should learn to swim to a functional extent. I feel that everybody should learn to swim in a natural environment. Go to a park or something that has a swimming hole where a creek's dammed up or something, and learn to be in a place that has at least a little bit of a current. You don't want to jump into a place that's going to bash you up against rocks. Learn to experience a current. It would be good if you're near a beach in any way, shape, or form. Go to a beach, experience surf and waves and things like that. So, if you do unexpectedly fall in the water off of a boat or off of a fishing pier, or there's a flood. You might even get a flood in your house. There's been scenarios around here where fairly large water mains have ruptured in a road and flooded a house that isn't even in a valley. It's on a hillside. These people end up with 6-8 feet of water in their basement. If you happen to be in the basement when that water comes gushing through the window, swimming may be a good option. By survival skills, obviously, this channel is more nature, environmental oriented, but these things are all, they're life skills that are applicable to life in general. But yeah, being used to a little bit of current, a little bit of rough water, you don't want to be freaked out experiencing something for the first time. Even if you can swim, if you're not expecting there to be a current, or you're not expecting a wave to smack you in the face and end up drinking a little bit of water, it can freak you out, and that can start a downward spiral in and of itself. But swimming, knowing how to swim, can be the difference between just being wet and uncomfortable for a while until you dry out, or being dead. It's that much of a night and day skill to have. Next on my list is just learning how to fall and or absorb impacts. this is another thing that applies to a lot of things in life. Yeah, I learned a lot. I took Russian martial arts at Millersville University for a while. And I was kind of involved in that, kind of sparring with people and stuff like that. And it's very principle oriented. It's unlike other martial arts I have investigated, where it was like somebody throws punch A, you throw block B, and practice that for half an hour. It was, first thing they teach you isn't to even punch. They're like, you're eventually going to get hit. Learn how to absorb a hit without getting hurt. You're eventually going to get thrown on the ground. Learn how to land on the ground without getting hurt. Parkour or free running is also great at this. You'll see these guys. There was a documentary following some guys from France called Jump London. They went to London and went to some different places jumping around. At the end of the show, the guy does the equivalent of a 3-story jump on purpose and just kind of rolls and absorbs it, and he's fine. And even during that thing, you'll see these guys, they'll miss jumps and fall like 1 story and just bounce right back up and keep on going. On the other extreme, there's people all the time that hit their head and end up in the hospital, or even die, or they break bones from what should be very minor slips and falls. They slip on the ice, but they land stiff, they land wrong. So learning how to fall in a way that minimizes damage to your body is a very important skill to have. And if you're hiking out in the woods and you're far away from, medical help, slipping on something or tripping or whatever, or, a tree branch falls on you, whatever the thing is, the difference between knowing how to absorb the hit and shrugging it off, maybe having a bruise or a scrape, and having a broken bone or something that makes it a more critical situation, and you're out in the middle of nowhere, it can be a real game changer. And, like the swimming, it's something that, it applies to everyday life. People trip over things, people, unexpected things happen. And having that sort of muscle memory to just kind of go oof out of the way instead of breaking a bone or getting severely injured is a good skill to have. The next thing, man, staring at that light's killing me. Don't know how to word this one. I've got it down here as general orientation. Just picking up the habit of kind of knowing where you're at, and it doesn't even necessarily need to be in directions of north, south, east, and west. I live in a fairly hilly or mountainous region here, in the Allegheny Plateau. A lot of times I just kind of keep a general idea of things in terms of uphill and downhill. Even being in a city or something, just knowing, like say you're in Pittsburgh and you're walking around, just knowing, okay, my bus stop is in the 5700 block of Penn Avenue. Penn Avenue is it runs east and west, and I'm north of it. So if I go south, I will eventually hit Penn Avenue, look at an address on a building, and walk up or down Penn Avenue to get back to my bus stop. Just general things like that. It's good to know that in any strange place. A lot of times I'll try to just keep track of, okay, this trail runs parallel to a creek. There's a creek in the bottom of the valley. I'm uphill on this side, takes me back to the trail. maybe, you know, the top of this ridge, there's a road. So there's a road above me and a creek below me. You know, if I wander off the trail, I know what points I'm in between, and I know my car is either upstream or downstream along the creek or whatever. Just having some general knowledge, whether it's in the directions of north, south, east, and west, and also having an idea just generally what will give you these bearings. Like I said, uphill and downhill, upstream and downstream are good general things that work on cloudy days. The sun and the moon both rise in the east and set in the west. You can learn to navigate by the stars. The Big Dipper's the obvious one. Shows you where the North Star is. You know which direction's north. Doesn't always work under tree cover. Doesn't always work on cloudy days. That's why I tend to, you know, use topography an awful lot whenever I'm in the woods, just knowing which direction uphill and downhill is. Or, you know, I went down a valley, up a hill, down another hill, just, you know how many hills away I am from my car, whatever, certain things like that. Just try to keep some sort of a general track of your bearing and how to, you know, how significant features relate to each other. Okay. And see, we're up to number 3 out of my 6 here. Would be just awareness. And this is kind of related to the previous one, but I'm talking more just spatial awareness of your surroundings. It's good when you're walking around in a city, just kind of, you know, being aware of traffic, being aware of other people and how they're acting or what they're doing. Is somebody a threat? Isn't somebody a threat? You know, same thing out in the woods. Just, you know, you don't want to be looking off in the distance and tripping over things under your feet. You also don't want to be staring at the, you know, the flowers or the trail or something and be totally unaware that, you know, you're sneaking up on a bear, or you're going to walk right into, you know, a hornet's nest, or, you know, you're coming up on a porcupine or a skunk or whatever. Just, you know, try to get into the habit of not getting too focused on any one thing and kind of be aware of what's going on around you. You know, are the birds all squawking because you're coming through, or are the birds all squawking because some other predators in the area? What's going on? Just having this awareness helps you survive, and it helps prevent getting into bad situations to a large extent. Moving up to number 2 is learning risk assessment. And this helps prevent you from getting into a bad situation, and it also helps you with finding the best way out of a bad situation. And, you know, once again, this applies to life in general, but, you know, it could be you need to get somewhere. Maybe you know, you walked up the trail and something happened. There's a landslide, the trail's blocked off or whatever. You know, sliding on your butt down this hillside full of rocks and jagger bushes, and that might be you know, you're going to get all kind of beat up and scratched up, but, you know, you'll be all right at the bottom. Looks like it might be a little bit easier to climb up this other way, but there might be a certain point where it's like, well, if I slip when I get over this section of it, you know, I might be risking a 30-foot drop. And it's just comparing, you know, what's the risk and what's the reward of the different options, and just learning how to do that mental exercise. And then it brings me to number 1, which is kind of the crowning thing of all, is learning how to control your emotions. You have to stay calm and collected and make good decisions. Bad decision making will kill you. There's a really, really good, it's almost like a poem included in the sci-fi novel Dune about fear being the mind killer. And it's a very true statement. When people are scared, they are irrational. They do stupid things. Being able to keep calm and assess if something's really a threat or not. I've picked on Bear Grylls before. He seems, for a guy named Bear, he seems extremely scared of bears. Like freakishly scared. One of the few episodes I had seen of him doing is Man vs. Wild. He saw some sign of a bear and he just goes hauling ass through the woods, jumps off a cliff into a river and goes floating downstream to escape the bear. Real life scenario, the bear's probably not that big of a threat. It's not that they never attack humans, they rarely attack humans. And if they do attack humans, it's usually because either the human makes themselves seem like a threat, usually to a cub and the mother's protecting, or the human's got some sort of food that the bear smells and he's not really interested in attacking you for eating, killing and eating you. They just want whatever the hell you've got that smells good, and they're going to beat you up and take your lunch. And just, understanding and assessing such a threat might keep you from doing something stupid. Trying to run away from something that isn't really a threat may put you in greater danger. Even if you know how to swim, going back to that, if you panic, you may kind of forget in the moment. Any of these things, you may forget what you're doing in the moment if you lack that ability to be calm. I've read books, about Bushido, the samurais. They would imagine themselves dying so that whenever they faced death, they could face death bravely. It's like they prepared themselves for it. And you almost need to do something like that. You need to think through scenarios in your head. Well, what would I do in this situation? Well, what would I do in that situation? Kind of a mental exercise. So when you end up in a situation, you're not just freaking out. Freaking out will kill you. And also, indecision will kill you. That's another thing people do when they stress, aside from freaking out and doing something stupid or, running away from something that isn't a threat or, whatever, making mistakes from the panic end of things. There's also people that, they lock up, they don't make a decision. And sometimes not making a decision is the worst decision you can make. Because, to quote Rush, if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. And, sometimes staying put is a good choice if that's clearly, the right thing to do. And, that's the other problem, is just things are so situational. Most of these things I see on survival skills, they're teaching you things you may or may not even need. You see things about, finding water. What are you trying to survive? Are you trying to survive for a minute? You trying to survive for a day? You trying to survive for a year? I mean, in general, you're just trying to keep on going. If you're lost or stranded or whatever, you don't necessarily know how long you're going to be there. You don't need to go trying to build yourself a deadfall trap to kill an animal to eat when you might be out of there by dinner time. You can go several days without food, no problem. You'll start to get weak and you'll be hungry, but you know, you can survive for a while. You can survive, depending on the situation you're in, you can survive for a little while without water. You don't, you know, try to take advantage of it if you've got it. And, you know, even shelter. What kind of shelter are you building? Shelter from what? You know, if you're stranded on a tropical island, you might have to make a shelter to protect you from the sun more than to protect you from the cold. And even building a fire. Do you need a fire? Do you need to cook something? Do you need to purify water? Do you need to keep warm? Maybe, maybe not. Every situation is different. And that's why, you know, I think trying to learn very specific skills, you know, it's, I'm not saying it's bad, but I think it's less important than just having the life skills based on, you know, awareness and keeping calm and having a general idea of where you're at and how to get back to where you belong, and keeping from being injured and keeping from drowning. And, you know, those are going to help you in any situation for the most part, except for, you know, the swimming and preventing injury may or may not apply, but the other four are definitely just universal, every situation. You know, your risk assessment, your awareness, having a general idea of where you're at and how to get back, and, you know, not freaking out and losing your mind. Working on those skills are going to just universally help you in life in general, and hopefully keep you out of a life or death situation. And I guess that's enough of a rant for that one. See you on the next one. Well, I hope you found that video informative. Hopefully it made you think, and please click the like button and subscribe if you haven't done that already, and check out the video that should be appearing somewhere around me here, and I hope to see you on the next one. Thanks.